Hello, everybody. Welcome to Strength Hammer. Once again, I got a wonderful guest for you all, Mister Martin Orlando. How are you doing, sir?
Doing all right. Thank you very much. Finally having me on the Exalted podcast.
Exalted. There
Yes.
we go. Yeah, no, it's fun. We chatted briefly beforehand, but we just came back. You ran the Claymore Teams event, 1 day event that I was able to make it out to over in New Jersey. It's really a fun time. And that was prep for the full Claymore 2 day event you're going to be running soon, I imagine.
I will keep people posted on that. Finding venues in South Jersey can always be a challenge. They either are unavailable during times where it would be not conflicting with other events, or asking for an absolutely exorbitant amount of money. So when I have details for people, I will be sure to get the word out.
That's fair. I really like the venue, like that little town we were in, little main street. It was quaint. It was
Yeah,
charming. Great food around the area. Free parking.
historic, historic Burlington, New Jersey. For visitors unaware, I ran a doubles tournament in a venue which was a Quakers meeting house, a building which had been there since 1783, if I do recall, uh, and entirely historic, nice gaming space that the venue was nice enough to lend to us. And outside there were trees, possibly older than George Washington,
Hmm.
behind in this gorgeous sort of backyard area. And yeah, thank you for coming out, Chuck. Bringing your whole crew, the main Ligonier Legion crew, if I
Hmm.
do remember correctly.
All but one of them. Our good
Cole,
buddy
right?
Cole. Cole couldn't make it,
Yeah.
but that's quite all right. He
It
was
is
missed.
it is a doubles tournament, so then you suddenly have to fit six people in one car, and I don't think that's going to work.
No, no, and I was already getting flack because we couldn't fit Brad and Alex's display board in. That you know that was a
It's
actually
yeah.
that's a funny story. We're sitting there, we're packing up the car. Brad's running a little bit behind, and Alex mentions there's a display board, and I look at my car, which is a Subaru Impreza. I said, "Well, you're not bringing a display board." He's like, "Oh, wait, he worked so hard on it." Okay, well, this is a Subaru Impreza. It's a team event for a 1 day event. You're not bringing a display board.
Yeah.
He came and saw my car, and just like you could tell, he was like, "Oh, he works so." It was a beautiful display board, but that's what
He'll get
happens.
to use it at many events to come.
He will. He will. The problem is he worked. He spent so much time working on it. He never actually included me in the text messages about talking about building a display board. At which point I could have said, "Hey, hold on. We either need to take someone else's car, or don't waste your time on that right now." So
Yeah.
that was on their fault.
And congratulations to Alex and Brad again for winning best overall at the event. I know one day doubles aren't always the most prestigious of things, but I'm really glad that they came out and gave it their all. It was really neck and neck for best painted as well. Those sculpted, or at least partially sculpted, halflings, all that Cities of Sigmar stuff, is
Hmm.
just excellent.
Yeah, no, he does a great job with his army. He's won quite a few awards with it. I keep telling him that every time he wins an award, I'm like, this is probably the last time you're going to win an award for that army. You need to mix it up, sir. But people keep giving him awards, so keep proving me wrong.
Well, at this time, because of how I used the rubric, kind of worked on from Nova into ACO into now, I tried to score teams as one group,
Hmm.
which meant that you either had to get two different painters together to really try and put out all the stops, or you might have had to do something that the New York team did, where one person painted both teams, or both armies for the team.
Oh, hey,
And
hey, listen. The fact that you came up to the most thematic team of me and Matt, who had Fire Slayers and KO, and you looked at my army and said, "I don't think your bases are done." I mean
yeah,
that's shooting yourself in the foot right there, sir. Because my bases were 100% complete.
I am clearly proclaiming my bias for all to see. In
Yeah, that's quite alright.
in that at first glance, you're shaman, what would you call it?
I,
Sulfur dust.
yeah, it was like a copper color, but like I went real dark in the recesses, so I could see where you said like, "Oh wait, is that like black?"
No, well, it looked particularly like I have a tub of railroad sand, which I've more or less had since I began in the miniatures hobby in the mid 2000s. And the sand, the different grains are different colors. So the bigger the grain, it's either orange, like candy orange,
Mm.
like almost like a bone color, and some black in there, and it looked like my hobby sand if I had glued it to a model and not yet painted it or just lightly dusted it with some
Well,
black primer. I'm
this
not saying that
this was
you're
all AK products, sir, with a little bit of GW. Need like oxide at the end to get a little
well,
copper
after I
effect on
actually
it.
picked a miniature of yours up and inspected it at more than a bird's eye glance, I could see that they were well done, sir.
There we go. I finally drugged that out of you. There we go. I got the recognition I wanted on that army. But no,
You did a good job and packed it full of Easter eggs and fun times. I especially liked the Kinerai as the masthead on, I believe, the Ironclad.
yep. Yeah, that was a fun thing, and surprisingly, it didn't really break yet. I was waiting for that to break on transit, but it survived. But regardless, it was a great event. You and your family put on a wonderful show. If anyone's out in the New Jersey area or sees Martin on Twitter, and you can make a little 1 day trip for this team event, or if he turns into a bigger event, absolutely do it. It was a great time.
Or both.
Yeah, or
We'll
both.
find out.
It was
We'll
really fun.
find out, and I will be the first person to find out, of course.
Absolutely.
So I'll let people know when that happens.
Yes, really had fun, and yeah, I hope to attend maybe the fuller event whenever it gets to there. But for now, today, you're on the podcast because we're going to talk about, I mean, a multitude of things. Like, I want to know a little bit about your backstory as a war gamer, and then we'll talk. Main topic will be about just passion for an army because I think you and I both have a similar mindset where we have one army that we're just going to love forever. Not that we won't do other armies, but I mean, you're the Lumineth man as far as I'm concerned. I'm the Daughters of Cain
And you have
fanboy.
chosen wrong.
Listen, I was a High Elf fan for so many years. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. That's my route.
And whenever Malarian elves decide to arise from the shadows, I know where you'll be.
I will oppose them as a member of Marathi's cult now and forever.
All right.
I may be
Say
evil,
say
but
say
I'm loyal.
say no to say no to the Dark Elf Boys Club. Got it.
Yes, I'm sticking with the ladies here.
All right.
But regardless, wanted to, for the benefit of the audience, give us a background of who you are, your background in the hobby, and also maybe just a quick drop of where they can find you in social medias too.
All right. I've never had to introduce myself to someone who didn't already know who I was, so pardon if this sounds
First,
a little corny.
first time for everything.
Um, yes, hello. I am Martin Orlando. I am a hobbyist based in the southern portion of New Jersey, USA, closer to Philadelphia than the Pine Barrens. I am not a piney. If you don't know what that means, have fun Googling it. My work expertise has nothing to do with the hobby. Y- I my hobby is all about immersing myself as much as I can in, I would say, and not only do I dabble, like I try and improve in how I perform in the game. I enjoy running events and trying to prop up the community, especially in places where it is a little underserved, like the New York City area. And
Mm-hmm.
it used to be around here. I used to be one of the only people who running events around here. Luckily, that is no longer the case. Uh, and I definitely enjoy spending long periods of time on the same group of miniatures. I used to be the worst customer of my local games workshop because the uh, cashier said she could never sell me anything. If I had walked into a games workshop, I had probably already made up my mind about what I was going to get, or not at all, knowing that I'm brooding over another project of mine. And since Age of Sigmar happened, uh, like I played fantasy, I played 40K, played Lord of the Rings, but since Age of Sigmar happened, I've been biding my time, waiting for something like the Luminous to come along, where I can really make my imagination feel at home, working on what I believe to be the epitome of my own artwork.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, I'm definitely more of a painter oriented, but I don't try and stick to any one thing. Uh, like I'm continuously trying to improve how I play at events.
Mhm.
I'm always looking for feedback about how to run better events, and I'm trying to think of a word for um, just the camaraderie of the community. I think I really appreciate the events which are more about making sure everyone who's in the same room is having a good time,
Mhm.
rather than perhaps a more honed uh, test of generals
Right.
is the best way to put. Because I know in your I have been listening carefully to your ITC series, and I appreciate the opinions there, but I may not possess the best example of fortitude in our community to have the patience for something like a master's event or presiding over a circuit of uh, people who are exclusively there uh, vying for first place. They are always welcome at my events, however, playing as they always have elsewhere. But just know that I am trying to make them feel as welcome as the people who are like, this is either my first event or um, I'm here specifically to not play players like
Right.
that.
No, and it's 100% valid. And I think the last event, this 1 day event that you ran as team event, because you had people who it was their very first event. You had people running a little bit more narrative, I'd say, within Matt and myself with our Fire Slayers KO, and then you had a team show up with dragons and giants, and God bless them. I'm glad I didn't have to play them because that looked like a nightmare.
Team taco time with double mega gargants. So fun. But I think you really wanted me to try and give more of an example about what the passion which led to my possibly now internet famous Lumineth army.
Yeah, well, let's
Because I
let's let's start whenever
mm, mm.
Sigmar began. You were there from the start, if I
Okay,
recall.
yeah.
You
Um,
like most picked up Stormcast Eternals, myself included, because that's kind of what was there, and you and I were both High Elf fans, if I can remember, and that really
oh,
wasn't a thing.
yeah, that is true. However, I had been saying, at least within my own circle of friends for a long time, it's like, where are like this is Warhammer. Let's not beat around the bush here. This is the Space Marine Miniatures Company. Why aren't there Space Marines in fantasy? In Warhammer Fantasy, sorry.
Hmm.
And I had been looking at it for a long time and just pondering because, like anyone else, we've seen some of the John Blanche sketches
Hmm.
from back in the day, which include the inspirations which led to the armor design for Stormcast.
Right.
And I did enjoy Space Marines as much as the other casual 40K fan.
Hmm.
And so when they decided to put Space Marines in the same setting as Teclis and Manfred von Karstein, I was like, sign me up. Absolutely. It's a shame High Elves are gone, but this is a new era. This is a new thing. And so I'm going to pick up Stormcast. Back then, it wasn't really a lot of it was just a little bit of everything. So I think my first army kind of was Cities of Sigmar before Cities of Sigmar was a thing. It was just the morass
For sure.
that was mixed order.
Yeah, you had a
Like I
nice
turned,
conversions of Sisters of Silence turned into great swords, if I recall. You had a nice
yes,
eclectic conversion quantity there.
the best I ever did at Adepticon, which I believe was like 29th place out of like some 100, was playing. I was the only person there playing, I guess, free peoples. You couldn't really. It was just order back then because
Was that
this
was
is
that
this was
still
2017.
Battletome Order? Like the
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
This
yeah,
this
yeah.
this this was early 2017.
Yeah, yeah.
This was the very first GHB. Like and I even got permission from the TO at the time because it was again any not anything goes. It's more like what are the keyword interactions here
Right.
where Bretonia and Empire were all free peoples and well one said free people and the other said free peoples with an S.
Yeah.
And so it's like, are these the same keyword? And they basically said sure. And so you could have the Fey Enchantress buffing the Free Guild General and Griffin.
Right.
So you could get it +1 to hit, +1 to wound, +1 damage, healing D3 wounds a turn, and I believe re-rolling wound rolls, which you didn't really need, but every little bit helped. And it turned it into a budget Maw Crusher. I was the only person at the event with one of those, and every time it charged something, it absolutely just blew through them. That was actually the only year I went to LVO. I played against a mutual friend of ours, Scott Reed,
Hmm.
and I still feel bad about this game to this day. Um, Scott's not a competitive player. He's there, I think, for the same reason I am, which is to, if he's not playing in the event, he's running a very large event that tries to cater to everyone, which I deeply respect. And so he knew what he was getting into when he built this. Just I think it was just an orc boys sort of Grand Alliance destruction horde,
Right.
and it was like, I'm going to take the basic troop, I'm going to take a lot of them, I'm going to have some characters here and there, and it's like, well, I guess I have one hammer unit, so we had a rogue idol. I killed the rogue idol back when it had I don't know if it still has damage taken, but I killed it in one round of combat with a free kill general and griffin,
Ouch.
and then I killed his entire army. I did not lose a model. A few, I think I had two Tempesters at the time. Again, this is mixed order we're
Right.
talking
Right.
about.
Right.
Uh, some of the Tempesters took wounds. Other than that, I did not lose a single model, and I still feel bad about that game. He didn't mind. He
Right.
did not mind.
He's a gem of a
He-
human,
right.
so yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
and it's also right. It was a very different game back then. So anyway, I had my fun building a little bit of everything, and I think as Age of Sigmar came into its own, I stuck with Stormcast because I found a color scheme I enjoyed. Um, I
and we both saw that it was the storm the space marine of this edition, so we knew that no matter what, having a stormcast army was not going to hurt us.
That is true.
Like you're always going to have
I'm
some
notor
support with it, even if it's not going to be our favorite army.
Yes, that is true. I think it was I called it at one point when Lumineth were announced. I called Stormcast for the vacation home for my imagination, uh, and I did appreciate it. I was hoping that they would get a little bit more of a narrative boost in terms of the like if they were going to go full Space Marine. I remember hearing talks of this from Games Workshop staff at previous open days, and this is now years and years and years ago. So clearly, this still has not come to fruition. I think they're either mulling it over or have just decided to like not really explore these ideas of making each of the storm hosts specifically, like giving them more of their own iconography, more characters, bits, and such. And
Yeah, they
yeah, I was hoping that would happen for the storm host I picked, but that didn't really. So I kind of just like made
yeah,
it a little bit my own, but
on,
not
on
too much.
on that topic too. And that's what I liked about 40K. Like I'm a Dark Angel fan, so when I
Yeah.
saw them come back into the main space marine world this last edition, I was a little hesitant, but it turned out okay. I think they found that struck a good balance. But yeah, I would love if Space Marines, not Space Marines, sorry, Stormcast.
Yeah,
I'm getting it mixed up now.
yeah, no,
If
no, no.
Stormcast had,
Dark Angels are a good example. It's like when I
yeah, I
want
want
to play
something a little
something that
different.
isn't.
I want a little bit more character on like this specific chamber that I play per se. Not that I have one in Age Sigmar. I have my own scheme, so I'd have to kind of choose where I'd want to go. But that's because I started that army early on,
Sure,
and there was no real. There's Hammers of Sigmar, and that was kind of it.
right, but it does scratch that player agency itch where you feel like the army that you're playing is like the way they're represented in the story. You are rewarded for in game by playing to that strength. Not only it's like Celestial Vindicators as an example. It's like not only am I playing a Celestial Vindicators army, they have the rules which evoke how they interact with the world in the lore.
Right.
Lots of charging,
And
rage, samurai combat.
and not to say that there's not some distinction with the way the books are
Right,
handled now. I
right,
want more as a player with that.
right. I was trying to get there.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, the bits more characters like and they made that is likely to happen in time. This is Games Workshop we're talking about. People waiting for Eldar. Some Eldar kits were old enough to vote until this week.
Yep.
So
Some still are.
eventually they
Some still are.
yes, the vehicles, the grav tanks and such, of course. So like it's unfortunate now, but given enough time, investment in their studio development and patience, uh, it will event like our wishes will come true in one way or another.
Right, for sure. And
Mhm.
to jump ahead a little bit, not to skip the great story that is the history of Age of Sigmar, but
Right.
we go forward. You and I are both not elf players because our beloved High Elves were kind of left in the wayside. And then Cities of Sigmar came out, and they said, "Hey, we're keeping all the kits except for High Elves. So okay, sure. Keep
Well,
carrying on,
that
carry
that
on.
happened. That happened the same time that Teclis made his first on-screen cameo, in air quotes. It's a book, after all,
Right.
in Forbidden Power, in which he does the very Games Workshop and Marvel sort of post-credit sequence of teasing just the tip. Are you sure you don't want my help, Sigmar? Sigmar says, nah, I'm good. And Teclis says, okay, buddy,
Yeah,
and then whistles off into the murk again.
and that was the thing where you stayed true. Like we saw Ideneth come out; they were the throwaways from Teclis. But the fact that Teclis was still around, I think you held on to the belief that there was going to be a rebirth of the High Elves that we love in some way. Whereas this point, I will say my heart was stolen by Marathi Kane, and I fell there, and I love the fact that I fell there. But you stayed true.
Absolutely.
So
I used my detective powers, my little griselles, as Poirot would say, to deduce. It's like I think they're. I mean, I did was just like, are
mhm,
they just gone forever for a while? But then 2019 came around. It's just like, all right, they're laying the clues on a little thick here.
yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't think it was going to be 2020. I thought it was going to be a little bit later than that. I thought they were going to take a little bit more time, but they did
right.
not. They decided to drop the army in 3 installments over like a 15-month period, which was hysterical, but much welcome.
Yeah, it's at that by that I said by that point my bloodlust and blood fever had taken over with Marathi, so I did not dare to see the portents coming. But whenever they announced Lumineth Realm Lords officially, I think it was LVO. Now, obviously, we
Yes, it
weren't
was
at an
in
LVO.
LVO 2020.
What was your
Yeah.
what was your what was your thoughts? What was your excitement level? Like, were you hype? Were you blown away? Was it what you saw, everything you wanted, or was it like hesitation? Like, I think I'm doing right.
Um, Trying to think back, I will say Tom Lyons TM called it. In terms of I
Oh,
called
okay.
it, not him.
Listen,
Yeah,
listen. Tom Lyons just says everything, so he can't say he called everything. All right, he just says everything and says he
you can
called it.
find it. It is in
Is it?
writing
Is
on
it? Is that?
Twitter.
Is it
On
one?
Twitter.com.
Twitter's
I
tw- Twitter's not a real place. It doesn't exist. That doesn't count.
My Twitter page is real. You can find no bullshit there. Uh, I do in fact not use it for shit posting.
Right.
The day they did the teaser for Pointy Elves, which was at the beginning of the year, and then LVO 2 or 3 weeks later they unveiled that the rest was just like I called it. This is a techless only army.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrion will be in another castle, as they say. I was pretty excited about it, and I knew I was like, I need to take my time with something like this because I want to take my time.
Right.
It's not like I would be terribly in a rush to chase the meta. I learned my lesson. The army I completed right before this was trying to really experiment with narrative hobbying, taking something which truly didn't exist in the Warhammer lore and make it real in my Vampire Vikings army, the Deathless
Yes.
clans.
Yes.
And so I built the most competitive army that early 2018 Legions of Nagash had to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And then, no, I'm sorry, it was like early to mid 2018. And I brought that to an event at the end of 2019. And understandably,
The
the
meta had
game had moved.
changed. Yeah.
Right. The game had changed. And I knew that going in. Like, they allowed me to use old Archon the Black because he was changing over, I believe, either the weekend before or the weekend of the event to his Bone Reapers iteration, which was noticeably less potent than how he was in Legions of Nagash because it was meant to operate in a different way.
Right.
And so going into Lumineth, I was like, well, uh, I'm ready to paint everything, every last thing, even the outright uh, bad war scrolls. Let's just say there's always going to be a bad war scroll in a book somewhere.
Oh yeah, somewhere. Yeah.
Um, and the wheel of the meta, the chasing that dragon, will turn and turn and turn, and eventually I will have everything at my disposal to bring whatever I want to an event. So I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't feel rushed to paint a winning list for an event every, I don't know, 3 to 4 months.
Right.
Because one, that'll just break my soul. Two, I generally won't be successful because I won't have enough time to practice with it.
Mm-hmm.
And three, it will feel extra feels bad if a certain build is out of bounds and gets nerfed right away.
Hmm.
I had predicted that would happen with foxes. That has not happened yet. So, see, I did choose wrong in choosing not to paint foxes yet, but I can always just paint foxes and use them whenever.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
but yeah, like I began to take notes. I began to do lots of soul searching and like, how do I make this army look like the better than I had ever really undertaken before? Because it's in a contest which is important to me is the Adepticon painting competition, not like Golden Demon or Crystal Brush, but
Just
like
within the GT, the top
within the
percentage of yeah,
GT.
yeah.
Yes, trying to finally get a first, second, or third place uh, finish in the best painted, best appearance section.
Hmm.
And competition has always been fierce, and generally, even if it's the same names being called year on year, they themselves improve fundamentally, exponentially year on year.
Right.
And so I knew I needed to really uh, go all out, explore, break new ground, explore strange new worlds with the Lumineth army in my
Hmm.
hobby ability.
And truly too, it's a painter's dream of an army. Like if you like there's lots of detail in the army. There's still lots of
Yeah.
flat space for you to do different types of things to experiment with. I think on the rogues, the big monsters.
Yes,
I love what you did with your Avlanor. That's probably one of my
thank you.
favorite pieces that you
The,
have, honestly.
the
So
one that I did zero conversions on,
right, but just the
oddly enough.
painting you did on it though is just I loved it. Like
Thank
your
you.
scheme really shines on that one specifically for me.
Um, Yeah, I did this. I did a little. I couldn't help myself but do a little bit of an art history lecture on Warhammer factions on friend of the show, Mr. Mephisto's Rantcast
Hmm.
podcast.
Yep, the mighty
And
elf episode.
yes,
Hmm.
I have been on a few of those. And the most recent one, we talked about how there's a clear analog from old High Elf troops to at least most of the core units in the Lumineth range.
Oh,
And one,
absolutely. It's yeah. I mean, if you look at what I did with my Lumineth, like there's the spearmen, there's the archers. I converted old stuff, and then the stone guard I converted old white lions to. I did it in more of a simplistic fashion, I will admit, because this is a club army, not a tournament army. But I think
eh,
you're seeing the opposite approach of how can I pay homage while still really encapsulating what this unit is.
yes, how can I capture the best of both worlds in a way that's respectful, creative? Because I'm not out to um, try and make my absolute like I'm not out to erase what is offered by the best kit, the
Hmm.
base kit, sorry, and build up something more in line with my own expectations.
Right.
I'm trying to work with what's there and enhance it, give it my own flavor,
Hmm.
because it's just what I feel like doing. There's no right way to go about it. Uh, but it's you mentioned like the white lions and the stone guard. Uh, it there's a they took away from High Elves into Lumineth a lot of the metal textures. There used to be large, like scale mail skirts,
Right.
and just like lots of metal. And yes, you could still paint that any color you wanted, but I think by changing it to having more cloth everywhere, it makes it easier to paint and just give it all of these different vibrant colors that might have been more limited in the low fantasy, a little bit more naturalistic um, plate armor and scale mail that so many of the old high elves were covered by.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's like I said, it's Lumineth is just a beautiful army to paint. I still really enjoy painting it. I chose a very simplistic scheme myself, like a dirty red, white, and blue type thing, and it's only because I started painting them literally on the 4th of July, so I couldn't think of a paint scheme. I was like, here we go. Um,
I
but
knew I
it,
wanted to have a red army.
mhm.
Uh, if you look at a lot of, I mean, the Celestial Vindicators aside, where I painted blue Space Marines in fantasy
Yeah,
for 2 years, but like if you look at the color schemes for all of my armies, even going back to when I was a little kid painting Black Templars, Tau Empire, and Lord of the Rings stuff, there really wasn't so much of getting out of my comfort zone in like bold colors.
right.
lots of sci-fi blacks and silvers and gunmetal grays.
To be
And so,
to be fair, I wouldn't call your Lumineth a Red Army though.
why not?
The blue still pops out more, and then the purple that you do have, which does go into a red. I think the blue still grabs the attention overall.
Fair enough.
I
Well,
see your Lumineth as a
let's
blue army overall.
right. All right.
Not no,
I
no,
mean,
not knocking,
how about
not knocking it. It's just that's my
yeah.
view.
We'll say we started with red because
Fair,
it's
fair,
like there
yeah.
isn't a lot of red, like there isn't a lot of red armor on these models. I just like I started with that, and upon consultation with key luminaries of the hobby community, including watching mutual friend Vincent Venturella's videos, I was like, "Oh, Vince, your Chaos Warriors. I think they're called the Crimson Cabal. It's like, can you do a tutorial on how you paint that armor?"
Yeah, paint them purple.
And
That was a wine
I
red.
would,
His was a wine red. I get
yeah,
it. I get it. Yeah.
yes, and I did appreciate that red wine color, and I did my best to paint it. Even after all of these elves, I've possibly painted over 100 infantry models now.
Yeah.
It's still a struggle every time to paint it how he does. It's they're not easy colors to work with.
No, no,
These
you do
these
not have an
paints.
easy scheme. You do not have
No, I do not.
I buy a box of witch elves and I go, cool, that's gonna be an afternoon. You buy a box of sentinels and you go, sweet, 2 weeks, let's go.
I try and paint five. Everyone always asks how long do these models take, and the answer is it's a hobby. I just do five at a time until I break that rule. And painting 13 at a time to finish my Du Bois army last autumn was just that was just running sideways up a wall is what it was trying to be like. I got it done 45 minutes before check-in the day of the event, and I still won best painted at that event.
There you go.
But still, I was like, I need to go back and clean up so many of those.
Yep.
Like
How many best painted awards have you won with this army?
each one.
Every event you've been to. There you go.
Every event I've taken the Lumineth to, I've won best painted with them. I don't imagine that will be true for Adepticon. Simply because of, I mean, we'll see. It's just I'm used to being absolutely floored by the level of quality shown at that event. It's kind of like, Martin, you did an excellent job. This is your best work yet. But you see those painters up further up the mountain. Yeah, you got to get there, buddy. Uh, keep going. Just keep on going. And it's this monumental climb. But still, I took them first. I finished them for an event in outside of Philadelphia called Summer Slaughter.
Right.
If there were tickets left for Summer Slaughter, I'd be shilling for it right now. It's a great event run by the Basement Wargamers Club out of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. Sean Feather and Jared Cannonball Nyman.
What's their podcast? Can you give it a shout out?
That podcast is now defunct.
Is it?
They are,
Oh, okay.
yeah, because Sean just had a child,
Well.
and they're working on possibly rebranding or maybe making a new podcast. I'm not quite. I think they're still at the drawing board stage in that one, but
That's
when
fine.
there is a new one, I'll let you know.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, you should follow them on Twitter because Jared especially likes to be on Twitter, talk about positivity, shit posting, and carriage and overlords.
Yes.
And Go Trek, of course.
That's due.
Yes. But anyway, so I won Best Painted at that event. The next one after that, I believe, was New Orleans.
Yep. US Open.
Yes, I was very thankful that my army was photographed. And while none of the photographs except one made it to.
Well,
made it
that's
to the,
that's another story.
Oh yeah, I specifically asked the photographer afterwards. It's just like, hey, I gave him the email, just like, could you like send those pictures to me, please? I would like free professional photographs of my army.
Heck yeah.
And unfortunately, only one of them was good enough in that lighting or whatever, because I was also the last one to be photographed. It was kind of done kind of quickly, but oh well.
Yeah.
After that was Du Bois. Du Bois was the one where I had to change my list a little bit. Painted 10 archers, 2 spearmen, and one other model. The point being was that it was 13 models, and I was just painting through all October into the middle of November, right up until the morning of the tournament, getting those ready.
Right.
And yeah, that was nice. And then Golden Sprue GT, which is the
Mm-hmm.
one in Albany, run by
Luke.
Josh Keel. Hmm?
Or sorry, I think another 40K guy that runs some of that stuff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And but for that one, I didn't have to paint a damn thing. I just brought the same list.
That's always good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially for someone like me, I was just like,
Yeah,
my
show
figure
up.
case is still packed. Yeah, my figure case is still packed from a pickup game I had the other night.
Oh,
I'm
even
just gonna
better.
bring that.
Nice.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's illustrious. So I guess what I'm curious to ask about is what makes you want to stick with this one army so much?
Um, I don't know a better way to say this, but I generally don't really care for the narrative and stuff of a lot of Warhammer armies in general. Like I know what I like, and High Elves are what I like. I don't really like to dabble. Like I don't play bad guys. I can't really paint gross stuff like Nurgle or bugs. And so I just I really I feel for the narrative of the High Elves, the sort of arrogant, self-proclaimed police of the free peoples of the world. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
with the recent Broken Realms where Teclis goes out to shut Nagash down, kind of
yeah.
taking that story back a little bit, saying, "Hey, we're gonna fix these issues you keep causing."
Yes, one day I would like some art of that duel. By the way,
Oh
I
yeah,
feel like we were robbed. I
I
understand that some of the Broken Realm stuff was like maybe finished at the beginning of lockdown,
yeah
but
I still personally I can't say this for certain, but to me it feels like there should have been a fifth one, and it should have been Hilarial. It feels like Hilarial's kind of
yeah,
shoehorned into the Kragnos one, which is like okay, but I would love to have a separate Hilarial one.
yeah. But there was this epic duel, very Skyrim-like, where Teclis and Nagash are fighting a mage duel in a blizzard at the top of the world. I was like,
Oh,
there
it's
wasn't.
no, no. Let's be topical. It's not Skyrim like it's Elden Ring like, sir.
There you go.
It's huge and it's outlandish, and mortal minds cannot truly comprehend its power.
And Nagash dies in one paragraph as a side note, which is a shame.
I did see I think a few fan created art pieces around it. Now obviously it was good art, but it wasn't like the highest quality that GW money type art that you normally see. So
Yeah,
yeah, but I would
one day
I hope so. I hope so.
we can just we can ask for it at when open days come back, and we can be in front of Games Workshop staff, and they ask, it's like, well, what did you think of this? And it's like, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about my fanboy wish list of Doom,
That's right.
your book
Don't
of grudges,
don't
the
answer the
nerd's book.
question asked. Answer the question you wish they would have asked.
Exactly. Uh, well, yeah. So it's like I've always felt a narrative connection to what elves have to offer in these fantasy games,
Hmm.
and like it really just like I don't I do struggle on the other hand to really get my teeth into other armies, and that's all right. It's this is my the itch I want to scratch,
Hmm.
and like but I did step out of my comfort zone to say something like vampires, and
Oh right,
that's
yeah.
actually one of my golden demon entries. Is I really focused in on them, and I still have 2 or 3 miniatures left to paint for that, in trying to make a Warcry warband themed off of my narrative focused Legions of Nagash / Soulblight army. Uh,
Yeah, no, and it's there's nothing wrong with
I hope
just
that answered the question. I was
yeah.
just kind of being like, high elves are for me, and that's kind of it.
No,
That
that's
that
it.
doesn't seem sufficient, but that's kind of all there is.
It's true. It's what's grabbed you and it's what you like and it's what occupies your brain. I mean, most people. No, I'll actually not this one for once because I chose the wrong layout. But when no, I won't worry about switching it. But like for me, my layouts are
Right, I
usually
can
daughters.
see all of the different. I see all of the different
Yeah,
artwork on your. Yeah,
I'm surrounded by Daughters of Cain art down here. My huge armies laid out below. I have plenty of other armies. I did KOs, cities, but they all tie back to the story of that army. So like I understand where you're at. Like it doesn't matter how many armies you eventually do in your lifetime.
hmm
You are gonna be remembered, and you're always gonna be the Lumineth player, the High Elf player. Just like
yeah,
for me now, I'm the Daughters of Cain player. Doesn't matter what else
Yes.
I have. I will always find a way to reference back to it. It's always there for me. No matter how big it
I
gets, I
do
always want to
wish,
add more.
hopefully with Golden Demon, not that I have any notion to win because of the nature of how Golden Demon works. There's only
Right.
first, second, third, and that's it. Doesn't matter if you're fourth or 54th. I do wish uh, if there was one thing I could wish for Games Workshop to possibly like expand, it would be like to try and be a little bit more innovative with what's in Death and Destruction Grand Alliances
Mm.
in terms of a miniatures range. And I think Soulblight Gravelords is there's too much opportunity there for it to just kind of be Halloween Superstore the army. That's great, but like let's keep it going. And I'm surprised that something that feels like quintessentially Warhammer, Vampire Vikings, you won't really see that anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they should make a Vampire Viking army, like take my homebrew and make it canon. That's not necessary. But I think there's just too much opportunity out there to like make more death and destruction armies, especially since there is such a breadth and depth of the possible in Chaos,
Mm-hmm.
the truly original creation of Games Workshop, and Order, your Lord of the Rings elves, your dwarves, but like we're gonna close in on like possibly 6 or 7 elf armies. We haven't even
Yeah.
gotten like a second human army yet.
Yeah, we
I
got
still have my
plenty, and technically the cities of Sigmar, it's kind of elfish too in a lot of ways.
yeah, you have your uh sort of like I don't want to say old person's home, sort of like your foster's home for imaginary friends in the
Yeah,
form of all of your old elf empires.
yeah.
Uh
Now,
and
uh, not to derail you, but to get back more on
right.
the main subject, I'm curious with Lumineth because obviously it's easy to tell Lumineth aren't done because Tyrion's also part of this realm per se.
Yes, and we're not done doing all of the Avatar The Last Airbender fan fiction. There have to be
Correct, correct.
firebenders and waterbenders of some sort.
Right. What's your hope of what's next for Lumineth, whenever that may be?
Yeah, so I hope that they don't lean like um if someone eventually listens to this who is one of the head writers for the Lumineth, I hope if you don't take this the wrong way, it's like I like Avatar: The Last Airbender too.
It's great.
It's one of it's
Yeah,
one
it's
of the
fantastic.
greatest all ages storytelling of my generation. But let's like tap the brakes a little bit and how much we're leaning into that with the temples.
Hmm.
So I would like to see a left turn. We're not going to see it at the River Temple. I would like to instead of just like high elf firebenders, can you like for Zenith maybe do something a little different? I had this idea originally; it was a worry, but now that we've gotten to so much more of the Lumineth, I think it's time to try and possibly make this a reality instead. Um, so there's a lot of Eldar mirrors for elves in Age of Sigmar.
Right.
Uh, so
Yeah,
I
and
think
that's that weird thing where High Elves influence them, and then Eldar influence
right.
Lumineth. It's kind of a cool thing to do. Yeah.
So the one thing that we don't have that Eldar have a lot of are Wraithguard, which are the ghost robots. Like
The dead.
their elf
This.
souls are
Yeah, Souls piloting the robots.
okay. So
Yep.
yeah, so souls piloting robots. We got one in the form of Light of Eltharion, which
Hmm.
is an excellent model, and I was expecting there to be a unit of him. At first, begrudgingly, because it's like, well, that's going to happen now because of how top-down design works. They generally create the characters and maybe a basic troop, but usually the basic troops are based on the design of the characters
Right.
when they make new armies. And I think it's time. I think if we get Zenith, because Zenith is alluded to in the story
Well,
of
Zenith
like
too. I know we jokingly said like the Fire Nation, but like they're heavens. They're not actually fire because
right,
there's no fire element
they're
within
like
the.
ancients in the Stargate. They have ascended
Yeah.
beyond corporeal
Yeah.
being.
There's no fire. Fire is just fire slayers. That's Shaman its own realm. So
Right, and
just before we get
it's
actually in the comments, I figured I'd throw
right.
it out.
I think that's too on the nose. Like we're going to get the River Temple. I think is like where you're going to get your Sea Guard. Like I don't even wish for it. I think that the patterns are too baked in.
Hmm.
That like your analog, the River Temple is the bottom of the ladder of enlightenment. It's the most common. It's where the most people who try the path of enlightenment end up.
Hmm.
And so you're going to have your most common of elite troop. which to me screams the Lothern Sea Guard equivalent.
Right. I
And
see
so
that.
you'll
I
have a
see that.
tempo unit, which will have your short bows, have your spears, have your shields. They'll do a little bit of everything, and not do it as well as archers or spearmen, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like that'll look nice. You can play in river themes without having to dip too much into Deepkin in terms of art design. Uh,
You can have a giant
and
toad, I guess. I don't know. What's the river
I
creature? Like it's not
to,
foxes. I'm thinking like anime because I see the fox and I think Naruto. I'm like, well, just giant toad.
I couldn't tell you because I didn't think of foxes. Like I didn't think of foxes when you think of what's a wind spirit. I
Yeah,
didn't
that's
think
true.
of Tibet. I didn't think of Tibetan yaks when they decided to pick an earth spirit.
All right.
So it's going to be something that you just didn't think of.
And well, we know it won't be turtles because I'd not have those.
Sure.
Yeah.
It could. It won't be a mermaid. It won't be. It'll. It. It will be something that you don't normally associate with water or rivers.
Or
I'm not sure.
yeah,
It will
yeah.
have a faceless spirit
The
mask. I
platypus.
sure. People are obsessed with like hippos because there's hippos in one of the flavor text bits at the beginning of the battle tome.
Hippos are scary. They'll fuck you up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They have like um Jaws. Like there's like videos of we're
Oh yeah, crush
getting
like
lost in the
anything.
weed.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
getting lost in the weeds. You're the seaweed.
Uh,
Uh, yeah. I would like to see Dragon Princes of Calidor. Like finally give High Elves their monstrous cavalry.
Now, would
Uh,
you? Let me ask you this because you called
okay.
this out perfectly when you see the banner lord Lumineth right now. How there's the
Yeah.
split. Obviously, one side's the Teclian, one side's the Tyrionic.
Yes.
Teclian, you can clearly see a Selenar type being. On the Tyrionic, you can see a so like a Phoenix Dragon type being. So like,
It looks like it.
do you think we'll
It
get
looks like
like
a.
a more of a air cavalry, like a mounted? Not I don't want to
They'll
call it
look like
dragons
they'll.
now because we have dragons now, but
No,
like something.
there's a dinosaur they found once. I think it used to be called Archaeopteryx, but it has a Mongolian name. It looks like a bird dragon because that's where we found like dinosaurs are, um uh like they eventually like turned into birds or something.
Right.
And I think it will look like a chicken dragon,
Okay.
and that's okay. It will be a chicken dragon. I'm sorry, with a quasi Asian faceless spirit mask like
Yeah.
Selenar and all of the other elemental
Right.
spirits.
Right. Right.
So Tyrion next to a chicken. Oh, it'll be like more like a phoenix. I think a phoenix is generally what they associate with these things, but it can't quite be a phoenix
Sweet
because a
Phoenician.
phoenix is already taken.
Well,
It's
unless they just simply take that and roll that back end. I don't know if they
I
would. That'd be some lore work to do, but that's. I mean,
I
who knows?
I don't think it's. I think that's a little too bold of them to do because they're like, well, this is Cities of Sigmar now, and we want this to be a Cities of Sigmar thing.
You're probably right.
But
Yeah.
right, I again, anything is possible. But I think instead of it will be Phoenix-like, but it will end up being a wacky, feathery chicken dragon, which is just what I need because I do not want to paint more feathers. Waited over a year to paint Teclis because I did not want to paint Selenar
Yeah.
because there's no way to cheat at painting feathers.
No, you can dry brush them like I did, but you can tell you dry brushed them.
Yeah,
It's
that's how feathers work.
yeah, it's you accept it or you do the work. It's yeah, there's no middle ground here. And I'm sorry,
So
contrast doesn't do it. There's just not enough recess on those feathers to make contrast,
yeah.
make it look like it's faulty.
Yeah, I think we're getting a Dragon Prince's unit. I think we're getting a Lothern Seaguard unit. I think we're getting Tyrion with a Chicken Dragon companion. The Dragon Princes will either be on a new creature, somewhat like the Lord Regent, which is it's called the Light Courser, but I just call it a Llama Cat because that's
Yeah.
what it looks like. And it's only mentioned on his War Scroll. They don't really have any other reference to it. That's the one thing I like about Stormcast is that all of their companion animals have like a little bit of a backstory about where they are, where they came from in the realms. As fantastical as it is, like
Right.
Godzilla ponies aren't exactly the most naturalistic wild monsters.
Yeah.
But So like maybe it'll be guys and llama cats, maybe it'll be a new monster, maybe it'll be a mini chicken dragons. I don't know. Uh, and Tyrion will be like a blind. Do you know what Zatoichi is?
The name escapes me, but is that
He's a pop culture sort of phenomenon in Japan. I don't remember if he's based on a historical figure or not. I don't think so, but it's just he's a notorious. He's a blind swordsman.
okay?
Like
Yeah, yeah.
he's a sam. But there's like as many films about him as there are James Bond movies,
Well, if
like
we
going back to the 60s.
before
So
he
I think
was yeah before he was retconned, Altharion became Altharion the Blind. We had the blind
yes,
sword, so that would be nice
I
if that
think
was like
Tyrion's going to take that on.
that, and that's fine because that was a wonderful story and trope that I was sad that they retconned, and now that Altharion's in its new form, yeah, if Tyrion comes back as that, that would be amazing.
I I don't know how they're going to mesh that because the blind swordsman look is very much like he doesn't wear armor because he's just
Yeah,
a
you just don't get
he's
hit.
like a vagrant,
Yeah,
right? He's a vagrant. Too like Satoshi was like notoriously poor. Like his adventures, he did not really like get into courtly intrigue or anything. He was more like he fought like mobsters and well as much a mobster as you could have in
right,
17th century Japan.
right,
Uh, and Tyrion is known for having the armor of an Aryan, the
correct.
golden dragon armor. And I don't know if that aesthetic can like mesh with him embracing his blind sage sort of trope.
Yeah,
And it'll be interesting to see how they do that model.
it'd be very interesting. Part of me kind of wonders because there's also the connection where Teclis, his eyes work for Tyrion, so Tyrion can see through Teclis somehow. I don't know. I don't know if that'll be
That was
slowly.
mentioned once.
It was. I don't know if that'll
That
be
was
subtly dropped along the
Oh,
way
yeah, it
at
was
some point.
mentioned only once. It was
Yeah.
mentioned in the very first, like 2015 narrative primer hardcover book. Uh, and I don't remember that being mentioned in well because the Lumineth Battletome was all about how Teclis created the Lumineth and
Right.
has
Right. Yeah. We don't
revolutionized their
too much into
society.
Tyrion, other than Tyrion's blind. Well, I mean, we'll see. I'm excited for it, and it's your passion for this army is definitely it's fun to see because like it mirrors
And
my dark passion for the
and
Daughters of Cain.
if they feel like sending out free versions of a small model for preview copies, they know where to find me.
Well, I'm gonna reach out to try and get a free copy of that High Gladiatrix for the Daughters of Cain. If I don't get it, Martin, then well, and you paint better than me,
Yeah,
so maybe you
there's
could
no hope for me. It's
you
fine.
but you actually have better hope. You
Yeah,
paint better than me. I just don't shut up about things. But no,
that's fine.
it's great. It's uh, like I say,
Yeah,
it's fun.
that's Sister's a Slaughter Hero, right? That's what the or do we
Which
not
is
know yet?
we don't know
Well,
what
she
exactly it is.
yeah.
It's a foot hero, High Gladiatrix, but there's also like two head options, one with Sister Slaughter head and one without. So
Yeah, so I would imagine that kind of seals the deal that she's a Sister's a Slaughter character.
well,
The fact that
it's
she has a Sister's a Slaughter
there's
costume.
yeah, there's one with and one without. So I'm assuming it might affect like just
Yeah,
people on foot more so than not. But we'll see whenever that does come out. They'll probably release
yeah,
rules whenever that box set's gonna come out. But as I was saying, it's nice to talk to someone else who has a passion for a single army, despite the fact that you have other armies and you will paint other armies along the way, because I really think having that core army that you love so much for you Lumineth, for me daughters, to always go back to that no matter what happens. If every other army I own is terrible, or they're just like, it's gone, we don't want it anymore. I still have my one army that I absolutely love.
yeah. I actually have been thinking about in terms of like what's next.
Hmm.
There's like two paths forward for me, other than like Golden Demon stuff. Like I have a list of stuff that I've been trying to paint this year purely for competitions and whatnot, and just get back into like because I miss having like a portfolio of something like you would see for a master painter of like a bunch
Hmm.
of unrelated but equally fantastically painted pieces.
Right,
After that, I think I mean I'm still painting Luminance. I'm
right,
focusing on
right.
a lot of the lesser played units, but I'm thinking about this is a little bit of a meta pick, but Cities of Sigmar has been doing relatively well with more variety in their builds than ever.
Hmm.
So, which is giving me hope, at least for like local events. I don't think I'll take an army other than Lumineth to GTs ever again, but like 1 day events and special stuff, I'm much more open to revisiting old
Yeah,
things.
for sure.
and I'd like to lean a little bit more into my Stormcast had a actual like a genuine historical Japanese sort of influence
Hmm.
to the point where I would take photographs at museums, and I feel lucky that I live within an afternoon's drive to the Metropolitan Museum of Art,
Right.
and copying textiles like from medieval fabrics and painting them onto Stormcast. If I were to try and expand that into a Cities of Sigmar army, possibly kit bashing, or maybe using some like third-party models. I forget the name of the samurai game that Warlord Games makes, Test of Honor or something,
Hmm. Hmm.
and maybe just like buying models to use as handgunners, dread spears, etc.,
Right.
and maybe investing in a box of Stormdrake Guard, and then trying to play a little bit more, not just Stormcast, but Cities of Sigmar. And also, for winning Best Painted at Summer Slaughter last year, I was gifted with a about 2,000 points of Night Haunt. Some of it I have given like re-gifted back to the community in form of
Right.
small prizes, but I do have a chunk of it still, and I would like to experiment if I can in a way that brings maybe some of the narrative that I made from the Vampire's Army into that Night Haunt,
Hmm.
and then play those at one-day events, particularly when if they become particularly competitive or strong, and I want to take them to an event in Philadelphia where they don't kid around,
Right.
eh, and like I'll paint it well enough that it's not
It's
it
yeah.
might win smaller painting contests. I don't know. It's no.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's where painting doesn't matter, so I can paint them to a comfortable standard
Right.
and
And
then
just
bring them to an event.
and push for an event. I see. I see.
Yes.
I hear you. And like I said, it's there's no reason why you can't also eventually do it if you like the cities to do a settlers gain and kind of tie it to your Lumineth in some way. But that's depending on how you're
Yeah.
feeling and the paint scheme and all that. But no, it's
As soon as Settlers Game is printed in a battle tome, or a new allegiance ability is created in a battle tome,
and you'll do it.
that's like Settlers Game. I'm petrified at going down that route because narrative supplements, as far as I'm concerned with Games Workshop, they hold people over for a set period of time. They create great content. They're
But you
great. They're well produced,
can't guarantee it's
but
going to be
they
set in
have a
stone.
right.
That's
They have a short shelf life.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I have a Anvilgard army, but that's more of my story. But like I could easily turn to Harkaron if that's where the story eventually goes. But we'll see. But
Yeah.
anyway, really glad to have you on to kind of talk about your passion for this army because clearly you are the Lumineth player in my mind and in many people's mind, and as we've seen on the internet. So tell us again, if anyone wants to go see your work, your content, your
Yeah.
army, where can they find you at on your social medias?
On Instagram, I think is probably the best place to follow me because it's where I post exclusively hobby. I don't get into the weeds on BS or drama or anything. It's just about my hobby and where I am with my work.
Mm-hmm.
One word, The Wandering Prince. You can also type my name into Google, Martin Orlando, and my Instagram is the first thing that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
On Twitter, I'm much more proactive in terms of a wide variety of topics, not other nerding subjects important to me, but also like trying to be proactive in the gaming community, events management, but also I post about my hobby there too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, CV underscore consigliere like the Godfather. Um,
And
eh,
we'll have links below for everybody. Don't worry. but
Thank you.
but yeah, no, it's great. As for me, strengthhammer underscore Instagram and Twitter. But for now, Mark and I are going to go get lost in the wonderful world of Elden Ring for the next few days. So if you don't see us on social medias, you know why. But take care, everybody. Martin, thank you for coming on again. We'll have to have you back on,
Thank you for
especially
having me.
especially whenever we get more Luminous stuff coming out. But till then, everybody, happy hobbying and stay Stormcast strong.